Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today again for today's podcast and videocast. My name is Patrick Ebunono and I'm doing this show on behalf of the Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem, Southeastern Ontario, based out of Kingston. Our vision, our goal is to really support Black entrepreneurs in Southeastern Ontario, to support their growth, to support their prosperity, and to help provide resources that they need to continue to grow and to continue to add value to our communities. Today I have a very, very fantastic guest with me, someone that I admire and I really respect, the CEO and founder of a fantastic company called Prosfata. Please join me in welcoming Norman Musengimana. Hi Norman.
Hello Patrick.
It's good to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
Excellent. Now, Norman, I know you're a man of many, many hats. And, sometimes I wonder how many hours you have in your day that we don't have. We normal people don't have. But before we get too far into my questions for you, can you take time to introduce yourself to not just me, but to the folks who are listening or watching us today? Who are you? Where are you from? What's your business all about? Why did you start your business, and what value is your business adding to our community?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick, and the Black Entrepreneurship Ecosystem for Southeastern Ontario for giving me the opportunity to be able to share about just a little bit about who I am and what I do and why I do it. So I was born in Rwanda. Rwanda, for some people who might not be really familiar with where Rwanda is, it's somewhere on the East African side of Africa. And of course, if you know the story of Rwanda, you will have known that we went through a period of war, genocide. So I've been a refugee, I've lived in Congo, I've lived in Kenya. And so when we got in Kenya back in 1995, that's where I finished my undergrad, actually my high school and then undergrad. And then after graduation, I realized it was really difficult for me to find a job in Kenya. And so I decided to kind of inquire everything I needed to go back to Rwanda, and then got everything and went back to Rwanda, got my first professional job in like 1 month, settled in Rwanda, and I worked with small business owners, entrepreneurs. I worked a little bit for the government, and then after 5 years I resigned from my full-time work, started my first company, and it is with my first company that I ended up working in East Africa. Ended up in South Sudan for almost 2 years. And then 2014, that's when I started kind of exploring what I can do outside of Africa. So I went to the US, I watched World Cup in the US when it was taking place in Brazil.
Wow.
And then after 6 months, I went back to Rwanda because I realized the US is not really as a good probably space for me as I was thinking before I went there. Like the reality and what my encounters on the ground were not really making sense. And so I kind of decided to go back to Rwanda. I realized that I can probably still do a bit of things here and there. And so I continued with my company. And then I decided to go to Belgium. I spent 1 year in Belgium. Then I was like, okay, Belgium is not a country that I'm enjoying that much. I went to the UK, spent a year in the UK. There's Brexit and everything, 2017. And then I was like, okay, I need to think about the next move. And that's how Canada came into the picture. Started going on YouTube, what's the best way to go to Canada, international student. So I got an admission at Queen's University, and I came towards the end of 2017. Had to spend 1 year at Smith, at Queen's University Business School. And then that kind of was my first footing in Canada, in Kingston. And I've never left Kingston. So I've lived in Kingston ever since. I've worked for the Kingston Economic Development Corporation, and they've given me opportunities to kind of enjoy myself, do what I really enjoy doing, which is supporting entrepreneurs, both potential and existing. And then in the process, I've created a not-for-profit organization called Biz Skills for Good, which works with BIPOC entrepreneurs, both existing and potential. But because I'm employed in Kingston, I cannot do that work in Kingston. I do that work outside Kingston. So I have another Black-led organization that is based out of Hamilton that has procured our services for the past 2 years. and we are doing great with them, fantastic supporters of black business owners, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities they continue to give to us. And it's in that process that I created my startup, Prosfata Inc. And so if you look at Prosfata Inc., it's built around my experience and the story, or the experience I've just shared of moving into new countries and realizing it's not the best fit, moving to the next, and so on and so forth. So basically, I've had the opportunities to work part-time for like Queen's University, St. Lawrence College. You are aware of this. I've had the opportunity to advise international students who are doing masters at Queen's University. And in the process, I learned that the very same challenges I used to face in 2014 in the US, in 2015 in Belgium, in 2016 and 17 in the UK, 2017 when I came to Canada, they are the very same challenges newcomers, international students are still facing. And that right there was the birth of Prosfata Inc.
Wow, that's amazing. Again, you're a man of many hats. You're a serial entrepreneur, and you've lived in Kingston for 7 years plus now. And so, can you tell us about the challenges you went through to set up Prosfata? What were some of the challenges that you encountered, some of the obstacles you encountered, and how did you overcome them, or how are you overcoming those obstacles?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I think a question many entrepreneurs actually, or an experience of very many entrepreneurs. I would say the number one was technology and technical skills, because personally, I might have all the ideas of what you can do as an entrepreneur, but I'm not like really good with technology, coding, developing apps, and those type of things. And Prosfata is kind of a technology company, and so technology is very important in the business model that we are building. And so that was the biggest challenge I had. And then the next big challenge is funding. When, in as much as I've been in Canada for all this time, I don't have PR. I'm still on work permit. And I'm not, so that means I'm not a Canadian citizen. So, and if you're someone who's tried to look for funding opportunities, you will realize that many of them ask you, are you Canadian? Are you a PR holder? Or do you have a refugee status, right? So that means that kind of funding opportunity is kind of out of the picture, right? So that means I have to look for other ways of funding what I do. And so one of the things that I know it's not my own, like I'm not the only one going through this experience, is side hustling. And if you look at the nature of majority of either black entrepreneurs or minority entrepreneurs, you realize that many of them, they do almost 2 or 3 or 4 things. And the reason is they are trying to see or to devise ways and strategies through which they can sustain some of the visions they have. So that's what I'm doing as well. I have a full-time job. I use this full-time job to be able to kind of help me get by acquiring the technical skills and technology needs that I have as I continue to build this business, and as we continue to build our presence, and as we continue to look for strategic partners who can help us to carry this vision along. And so this is kind of what we are trying to do, and we've been having some really cool and fantastic success. And we just hosted our first event in Toronto, in North York.
Wow, congratulations.
And so things are going really great, and we are excited.
Fantastic, fantastic. Again, congratulations on hosting a wonderful event in Toronto, and I admire how you're able to balance the various things that you do and still being able to move your organization forward. Let's talk about your heritage and starting a business in a new country. You're a black person. And what kind of barrier did you face as a person of color starting a business in a community that is predominantly consisting of people that don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't act like you? What kind of barriers did you face, and how did you overcome those barriers or obstacles?
Yeah, so that's a very good one. One of the key barriers to get to open doors, to get to the right people, get to decision makers. I always say, if you are a black person who's trying to run a business, you're already facing challenges into the way you live every day's life, right? They could be discrimination related, they could be maybe even not having opportunities, equal opportunities to your friends or your peers and so on and so forth. When you're going to start a business, I always tell people, know that if you're already facing challenges to go by every day, when you're going to start a business, those challenges are likely to double. So, and I don't say it because they are going to actually happen, but I say it because mentally, psychologically, you have to be ready so there are no surprises. So I think the number one challenge is to convince people that stakeholders, partners, potential clients, I have, sometimes you go through experience and you're afraid to share it. But I'm gonna say this one. Someone actually asked me, like, you don't even speak English like Canadians. How can you do this? Right? And then I was like, what does speaking English have to do with you getting the service you need? If you, this person was from somewhere in the Middle East, and then I asked him, if you went back home, will you get experts who might be the best in the world in their space, whom you can go for support, or you can ask for support? Say yes, but they speak probably good English. Then I said, okay, do you have community or religious leaders in your community who don't speak English, but who are the role model of what a community leader should be? They're like, hey, I know a couple. I'm like, can you go to them for advice? They're like, I actually always do. Then he was like, even my grandparent was one of them and he never went to school. I'm like, so right from already your experience you've had so far in your life, you can see that English has nothing to do with you getting the best service. Like, if you are really struggling with finding the right opportunity, if you want to do interviews and succeed, we can do that. But for us to do that, you have to trust us. You have to trust me and my method and the systems we've built and the coaches we have. And by the way, we have coaches who speak really good English.
Wow.
And who can speak French, and who can speak Urdu, and who can speak Hindi, and who can speak Mandarin, and who can speak Nyarwanda. I'm like, so we are really, really ready for you. And this person, after 1 week, reached back to me and was like, I think I'm gonna do it with you. I've just paid about $1,500 to buy a coaching program, and the results are not that amazing. They gave us the opportunity. I proved him wrong from his first assumption. Now he's one of my closest friends. So those opportunities or those challenges do not happen only with strategic partners or funding programs or talent. They happen even in the very same people we want to target as potential customers. But the goal is not to encounter challenges and then give in. The goal is to actually find out the source of the challenge, and then once you know the source, now you can work around it. You can try to convert a potential naysayer into a really fantastic customer. And the same strategy applies to funding programs. The same strategy applies to people.
Wow, that's very interesting, very profound. Your story reminds me of a story I heard a while ago about this guy that when he finished from high school dropout, and he couldn't speak good English, and then many years later, like a decade or more later, they met for the high school reunion, and he turned out to be the richest person from the high school, from his cohort. And so they were asking him, how did you do it? You know, like, we knew you. You were the dullard of the class. You were intelligent. You know, how did you do it? The guy said, I don't know. I bought something for $3, sold it for $6, made 3% interest on it, and that's how I made it. You know, he was still. I mean, he said 6 minus 3 is 3% interest. You know, I made 3% profit. Yeah. You know, and the 3%. That's how I made it.
Yeah. So he was still not good, but he was still making it.
You know, so you know, he had the results to show for it.
Yeah.
I have 2 or 3 more questions for you as we begin to wrap up today's episode. One is around, you know, when we think about the Black entrepreneur ecosystem, Southeastern Ontario, we're really trying to support the growth of Black-owned businesses in our region. And you know, there are a lot of people out there in our community who are thinking about launching their own business, but they are scared. They have ideas, and to what you said, they are hustling and combining various things, and some of them are at the point where they should take that leap of faith and just focus on that which they are passionate about. But again, there is that fear, there is that concern. What kind of advice would you give someone in our community who is looking to start or launch a business in Kingston, in Cornwall, in Brockville, in Bellevue, in Napanee, again in Southeastern Ontario? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so number one is you have to be ready that it's not going to be easy. Like, if you think you're going to start today and become a millionaire tomorrow, it's going to be very challenging unless you have a trick in the book that we haven't read. And so the other piece that I usually tell people is, I ask them, like, when you think about doing this, do you get scared? And then they say, yeah, I get scared. I say, if there is fear, to me there is something really cool. Yeah, so I always tell people, like, if there is no fear, you should actually be worried. If there is fear, there is that wall of fear. The moment you go through that wall, then you start discovering that which was preventing you from actually exploring your idea, your vision, making some of the ideas you have in your mind come to fruition. So fear is like a beam of light in the dark. It's like your compass. It's giving you direction. Yeah, and it indicates that you are trying to step out of your everyday self. It indicates that you are trying to dream bigger than what you've always done. So fear is not bad. What I usually tell people is, have the fear, recognize it, and it's not going to be the first time that you go through that process. Every time you're going to make a bigger decision, should I invest this much money while it's my last saving? Should I launch this product today because I feel like it's not ready? Like, every time you are going to make those type of decisions, there will be an element or an aspect of fear. So what I usually tell people is, we are now lucky. We are living in a time when you can get advice, either from people around you, or from even people are doing the same thing, even from other parts of the world. Right now you can use Zoom. Right now you can use WhatsApp groups. Like, we have unlimited options for support. So don't be shy to ask, because we are here to support. We get support, we give support, and we enjoy the process of helping our sisters and brothers. I think one of the vision of the organization is to build, is it 10 $1 million companies? 15 $1 million companies in the coming few years. So we are here to support. So they should never face fear.
15 or 12. I think between 12 and 15. But I think one of the things you mentioned, you know, talking about support, that humility to reach out to ask for help. You know, I remember, I think a couple of days ago, I was having a chat with you and I said, I'm coming to your office, I need some advice on sales and marketing strategy. And one of the things I said, even LeBron James needs a coach.
Yeah.
You know, even Pele had a coach. Yep. You know, Messi had a coach. Ronaldo needs a coach. Yep. And so you think about the top athletes, you know, in soccer, in hockey, in football. I've never ever met a top athlete that did not have a coach?
Now, so on that same idea there, they do not only have a coach, but they have other support services like legal, like mental health, like physiotherapy, like, you know? So like, you cannot be a lone wolf and then expect to succeed in a world that thrives on social networks, on having friends, on like who we are as a people. You cannot succeed alone. You need other people for you to succeed. I always tell people, like, if they give you $1 billion and they send you to an island where you are the only person on that island and nobody comes to that island, you live on that island by yourself with your $1 billion, what will be the worth of that money? Almost useless. Because even if it's an island, it's as good as a prison. So we need people around us, and they are our clients, they are our advisors, they are our team members, and so on and so forth. So asking is not, I think developing a skill to know how to ask and when to ask is one of the best probably things I learned when I was very young because of being a refugee, right? So you're always like a minority everywhere you go. And so it's like, oh, don't talk to that guy, he's a refugee. But if you ask in a nice way, they will actually give you what you want, right? So I learned it very well. I kind of learned how to be vulnerable, and how to use humor, and how to actually be intentional about saying, yeah, you know what, I wanted that, but I don't know how to get it. So if you know how to do it, could you please help guide me? And you'll be surprised. People are always ready to help. They forget that I'm a minority or that I'm a newcomer, and they go like, oh, have you tried this? Do you know this person? Yeah. Amazing.
I have one more question. If you were to go back in time to talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give a younger Norman, a high school Norman?
A high school Norman was in a lot of trouble. A high school Norman was a refugee in like 3 countries in a span of 2 years.
Wow.
Was going through war, through the genocide. A young Norman, I think one piece of advice would be, love people, trust people, but trust yourself to carry the burden of everything people promise you to do together or to support you in. So be responsible for achieving that which you want. Bring in people to support, but don't expect that everyone will do 100% of what they have agreed. And if it doesn't happen, have you put in place a strategy, a mitigation factor, so that you pick up the pieces and you continue to achieve that which you want to achieve?
Wow. Norman, that's a fantastic way to end today's episode. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge, not just with me, but with the folks who are watching. I am keeping an eye on you because I know that the sky is not your limit, because there's a space beyond the sky. The sky is your starting point.
Thank you so much, sir.
Looking forward to seeing you bloom and blossom and excel. And again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be part of these conversations.
Excellent.
To be part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers, again, thank you very much for joining us for today's episode. I want to say a big thank you to the folks who have sponsored this event. Thank you to Pedal Works for giving us their space to use for today's episode. Thanks to the board of directors of BISO, the Black Entrepreneur Ecosystem, Southeastern Ontario, To Benga and to Damola, thank you for your time, and thank you to the folks that gave us the resources we needed to make the show happen. I hope you learn a lot from today, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.